It's that time of the week again. Another episode of Healthy Thriving Family After Divorce. Stephanie Dobson is here. Stephanie is a lawyer, mediator, and online educator with Hanka Divorce Law and Mediation offices in Lloydminster and Edmonton. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks, Stacey.
Well, Stephanie, we're going to dive into a subject today that some people might not really think about everything that's involved with it, but it's actually a lot and can cause, issues in separate relationships. And that's talking about how parents whose adult children are going through separation or divorce, how they can support their kids at that time. And that's kind of a big issue, like we had alluded to. So today, the first thing we're going to talk about is what are some tips that basically, if you need to kind of step in and you want to help your kids going through the separation or divorce process, what are some tips that people can do to help them out?
So I've got three tips that I thought of for this particular question. So the first tip is to encourage your adult children to consider a positive and healthy separation or divorce. Oftentimes adult children will come to their parents for advice or to vent about their situation. And I always say that irrespective of how you feel about your soon-to-be ex, son or daughter-in-law, it's important to encourage them to be civil, especially when there's grandchildren involved. I have lots of resources on our Henka Divorce website, henkadivorce.ca, to help divorcing families learn that positive and constructive way to separate. So I encourage grandparents to do their research and figure out how you can best support your child in a positive way. Tip number two is to think of ways that you can be there for your adult child. So you might be there for some financial help. So they may want to set up, your adult child may want to set up a new residence. You may need to help them to care for your grandchildren to help them to reduce expenses or co-sign for a loan or even help them with some professional fees. And it's really important to document this properly to make sure that it's considered either a gift or a loan. You might want to help with some respite support. So, your son or daughter might want to go out for an evening just to be able to get away from their situation and have a little bit of fun. So you could be there as a caregiver, and even some emotional support, to be a shoulder to lean on. Tip number three is to be flexible. Your adult child will be going through a lot. So things like when family gatherings come up, maybe canvas your adult child to see what will work best for them and your grandchildren, especially in the first year of separation when there's holidays coming up and new traditions are being created. It's hard when adult children are being pulled in lots of different directions with lots of different extended family pressures. So do what you can to show flexibility to them.
Okay, and Stephanie, if you realize that your grandkids are experiencing high conflict separating parents, what can people do to help out the grandkids?
So I've got another three tips for this. So tip number one is to be there to support your grandchildren as much as you can. They're going to be experiencing various emotions, highs and lows. You can avoid prying for information, of course, about the divorce, but allow them to talk if they initiate something. Grandparents can be a great diversion for kids, and they sometimes feel more comfortable talking to grandma and grandpa than they do their own parents. So it's important to meet them where they're at and give them some drama-free time and loads of fun and a shoulder to cry on if they need it. Tip number two is to maintain a united front with the parents so that the messaging is consistent. So it's important to talk with your son or daughter and their soon-to-be ex-spouse to really understand what their messaging has been to the kids about the separation so that you can reinforce what the parents' messaging is. And tip number three is to always speak positively about both parents. Even though you may feel more aligned to your own adult child, it's really important to ensure that the grandchildren are none the wiser. Just like one parent should avoid speaking negatively about the other parent, it's same thing goes as well for grandparents.
All right, Stephanie. Well, thank you so much for joining me this week, and we will chat again next week.
Thanks, Stacey.